So I had a question recently about tables and a more complex table to be built with Thrive Architect. And there are a lot of different ways of doing it. There are two main elements you can use. The first one is the table element in Thrive Architect, and then you could use the multiple column as well that will be stacked when going responsive. The challenge with large tables is uh, that on phone and on tablet it's going to be definitely you know, because of the format of the mobile, you have to scroll and it's not as user friendly. So if you want to have an experience, a great experience on mobile, you might have to run a lot of tests and make sure it makes sense. Maybe hide some of the information on mobile. Sometimes what I tell clients is uh, on mobile, show the minimum quantity of information and get an opt-in there to say, hey, we have a full PDF, send me a PDF, because it's much easier to read on a PDF and people can then open it on desktop. And you can word that into the opt-in as well, saying, hey, we understand this is you're on a mobile phone right now. We can send you a PDF where you're going to be able to see it, or simply a link to the same blog post. If you don't want to create a PDF, you just send a link to the blog post, and then when people get onto their desktop, they can see all of the details. Because practically, if you want to compare, if you're building a table to compare 10 products, and each of the product has 10 features, and then you want to build a grid of 10 by 10, that's 100 pieces of information. On a phone, it's going to be very hard to compare. You know, to analyze what you need or what would be good, and to understand the differences between the products. So sometimes the way to do it on mobile is hide some of the information and really get into an opt-in, and people will appreciate it, and then you can follow up, and then people get onto your list, and then you can do all sort of stuff as well. So sometimes I see people that want to do some very complex information on mobile, but it's not the device for it, and there's ways of displaying opt-in to redirect people to their desktop once they get there. I mean, personally, I get 85% of my traffic on desktop. I do all my advertisement on desktop only, because I know that's people will not do web design on desktop, and people are probably less likely to put their credit card and buy stuff on a mobile phone. So sometimes it's better just to focus on desktop and have a different ways of handling those visitors on mobile. Tablets is a bit easier. It's a bit bigger, and it might be a way, but it's really dependent on the complexity of your tables and what you want to do. So I'll show you a few examples, and hopefully it makes sense. I cannot show you every type of examples, because there is so much stuff we can do. I've seen very complex stuff as well, but hopefully that will be of good value for you. So the first thing I've done for this first example is to create a new blog post on my main website. You see that it's a narrow column because I do have a sidebar. If you have a big table, sometimes what I do, depending on a blog post, I will hide this, and that's relatively easy to do with Thrive. If you use one of the themes from Thrive, if you're using a non-Thrive Themes theme, then you might have to look into if it's possible and how to do it. But I'll show you here. I'll show you here first how it would look with, let's say, 5 columns with a basic table, and then I'll show you if we hide this as well. So it'll give you some ideas. So if we just search for table. So if you're familiar with HTML, this table element is basically the old way of creating tables in HTML. So I've put 5 columns, and then we have to drag. So you see header and cells. So we do have to drag an element. I'm going to drag a plain text. So if you just search for plain. So the advantage of the plain text, and there's less padding underneath. So sometimes it's just easier. So I'll assume let's call this product, then you can just clone it. And then for the first product, you can again, you could clone this as well. So it's a plain text. So it does take the color of the table itself. I'm going to first row here. So what you can do is click a preview, make sure you have the latest update of Thrive Architect. You can preview on tablet. So in this case, the text is very small. I'll just add some more information. So you see that it's going to wrap like this if there is more text. So it's something that the table will do. And then if we go on mobile, you'll see that what it does, it shows a table, and then basically people has to scroll like this. So in some cases, it can be very beneficial to do it that way. In some cases, maybe you want it to wrap vertically. So the table will not wrap. It's not the purpose of the table. Sometimes we want this even on mobile, and people can scroll and see, and we can really build a grid. So sometimes that's what we want, and that's that's the feature itself of the table. So I've mentioned sometimes we want to remove this because the main thing is to get the attention on this. And for some exceptions, for some blog posts, maybe you want to remove this. So if we edit the post in Thrive in WordPress, if we just scroll down, I'm using the Ignition theme, the Rise theme will have the same thing. You can come here and do a full width template here, and just click Save Draft in this case, and I'll just go back and refresh. So to create more examples, I'll create 3 products here in this table. The way to do it, you can click somewhere there, click on the table, then go to Manage Cells, and then you can see Add Row. So I'm going to add 2 rows here, and then close it, and then you'll have to clone it like this and move them. So pricing is sometimes it's better to align it on the right. So when there are multiple sizes, I'll show you some examples. So if this one is $1.99 and this one is, then it's easier to read that way than if it's centered. So some of the other thing is might be easier to align on the left, might be easier to read. So something like this. So gives you a good example. So again, here I would if the quantities are, sometimes it could be something like this. Then aligning on the right is just easier to read. So the table is quite good of aligning. It will divide the different columns in equal width. So that's the way the table element works. Some of the other nice features, you can have something like little you can put a light gray so it's easier to see the difference between the different elements. You can have the header as well, maybe more contrasting colors, so sometimes that can be interesting. Make sure you align those things as well properly. So unfortunately here there's a gap. We could do something like this. So sometimes we have to. Very often it's a case by case scenario. Depends on what you have. So you could play and maybe align, maybe switch columns around to make it look better as well. So it really depends on what you're building here. One nice thing of the table is the make sortable. So if you have that, then I'm gonna just save it and preview it. So you can have this option to sort. So it's gonna be alphabetically. So and there are some issues. So you see with the right align, we could have put the space just after the size to fix this. And always test, because sometimes it will sort by numbers or by letters. So in this case, everything seems to be good. So you see, this is an example where the sorting is not fantastic, because it sorted this one, so it's not by number, it's by characters. So unfortunately, the sorting is good for text and maybe not for numbers. So that's something for you to look at. It really depends on your scenario. You could possibly make it work with putting zeros in front. So for pricing, it wouldn't work great. Maybe for other things it would work. So you'll have to test it. Make sure that it works in your scenario. So again, the little trick here. So here the word size, we could just put some spaces just after. And here as well, so a few spaces. Just save and preview again. And then so now it's okay. So numbers, again, sorting is always been a problem for the End of Time. So it's sorting by letters and not by numbers. So there's definitely other solutions out there to be able to do that. Maybe outside of Thrive, there's other plugins if you want. Like if sorting is a big priority for you, and depending on what you're sorting, so something for you to just test and make sure that for your scenario it works. Or you can disable the feature as well. So sometimes that's one way of just don't use a feature if it doesn't work in your scenario. So there's also formatting features as well that you can have a look, that can be very interesting. And sometimes it's important because of your content. Sometimes you will need to play with this to make sure it looks as best as you can. So to make the table responsive, the way to do it, click again on the table, make sure that in the breadcrumbs you're in the table, and then click the mobile version, and then you will see this create mobile responsive. So by default it's not enabled, so it will be like that. So it will be a slidable scrolling bar like this, horizontal scrolling bar. And if you make it responsive, then the way it works is that it will show product A, size 59, weight, so on and so forth, and then it will repeat. It's 2 columns, so sometimes if you have very long descriptions it won't be fantastic. If it's short, it can be good. So it really depends on the quantity of text and elements that you have. It can be good at times, and sometimes if if it's like very long paragraphs, then just to show you, if I would put a lot and all of them would be descriptions, then it might not be fantastic. So it's something for you to have a look at. You could center it or see with the alignment, maybe the left alignment might be better. So you'll have to test it again. It's a case-by-case scenario. Not every table is the same. Maybe reducing the size as well might be good. The other thing is, in this template that I have, there's a lot of margins. So there's the margin of the blog post is a margin here. So margin of the page, margin of the blog post, and then there is even more margins. So you could CSS this just for this blog post maybe, so you can get more space. So sometimes I would manually, for one specific blog post, do custom CSS. You can do that in Thrive quite easily by going to this gear icon, advanced setting, and then custom CSS, and then you can do it, and it will be applied only for this post. So sometimes that's a good way of doing it, depending on what you want to do. So I've created another example 2. You can view it. So it's a table element, but there's only 2 columns. So if you can see, the first column goes from here to here, and then the second column goes on this side. And within the first column, I've put a bunch of headers and description and text. So I have multiple on top of each other, and then on the right I have this. It's actually a multi-column, so it's a 2-column block of text, and there's a paragraph here, there's a paragraph there. So an example of so the product A, the title would be there, the description, the price, the features, some maybe more information here, some links, and then here is the list of compatible tools with product A or systems or whatever it is. So you could again use it for a lot of different things. Here it's a column element, so you could move it like this, and then we have product B like this. So this is an hybrid. It's a table, and within the table there is text, and then there is this even multi-column elements. If you look here, it's columns, so there's 2 columns. So that could be an interesting way in some cases to be used, depending on the content that you may have. Again, you can change the layout, the display, and all that stuff. And if I look at a phone, so that's the first one, and then example 2 here. So we have, so again, it's very tight, but sometimes it could be good. So 2 columns. So the first column, so at the top we have the title of the column, so product, and then product A, description, pricing, more info, and then we have the list of compatible tools here, and it shows it's on top of each other in this case, so it flows on top of each other. Then we scroll down, we have product B. So there's definitely adjustments in terms of font size, in terms of layout, if you want it to look nice. Again, the width, I would play with the width here of the page, and then and we have the information there. So that's another way of doing it. It can be very efficient. The other way, if I've mentioned it, is to simply have a desktop layout, and then you have this call to action here. Get this table on your desktop, so or send us. Send me this information next time you're on your desktop. So enter your name and email. So basically you capture their email address. Maybe just email is better since they're on a phone. And then they say, okay, send me the details. And then we send them a PDF version or simply a link to this. And next time they're on their desktop, they can open it and see it properly and have the full picture. And they can, especially if you're an affiliate, if you have affiliate links, and that can be good. They can be on their computer, click the affiliate link, and then purchase a product, and you make the commission. Because if they're on their phone, maybe they won't go through with their purchase. And if you have their email, you can remind them, hey, we've got an update on this table. So there's all sort of email marketing we can do with that. And this can be, I left it to show on desktop, but we can have it only to show on mobile as well. So that's definitely an option. But I think it can be good to be shown on every type of devices. Just to show you on tablet as well how it looks. So it looks pretty good. There's maybe having columns and borders. And there's definitely more things we could use in terms of displaying it properly and making it easier to read. But overall, I think it does a job here. Again, left align, we can go through that, and it's easier to do left align, but if you want to do center and right, then you'll have to play on phone and tablet. So I hope this can be useful for displaying information, large quantity of information, comparison information on a page, on desktop, tablet, and mobile. If you have any questions, please let me know. So I hope that was useful. If you have any questions, post it below in the comment section. And there are some links as well at the bottom of the YouTube video where you can see all of the examples as well.